Hello, everybody. As you've been told, I'm Sheila Graham. I'm from Jamaica, and I am the Executive and Artistic Director of the Area Youth Foundation. And we are very, very honored to be here. Thank you all, Suniti and everybody in the Lloyd Best Institute. 3 of us came. James had to leave this morning. James Bell was a founding member of the Area Youth Foundation. He came in as a teenager 15 years ago. He's now the general manager, the financial manager, the project manager, the stage manager, and, manages me. Also here is Walter. Here is Walter. Oh, he went, but he'll be back. Walter is a musician and he works with us, and as time goes by, you'll learn a little bit more about the role of music in the work that we do. But I wanted to start by dedicating a poem to Lloyd Best, because I find it's nice sometimes in poetry to echo the sentiments and the meaning of one's work. And this is by Mervyn Morris. And it says, "Old plantation wither, factory closed down. Brothers in the country raising cane in town. And now them in the city sweating blood, them fine is just like the same system them did mean to left behind. But agents or the owners, them is harder now to sight. Plenty busher don't ride horse, and some don't think them white. In the new plantation story, first thing that have to know is who and who to tackle when the call to battle blow. Independence in Jamaica had followed that plantation story. It came with a wave of optimism. And I guess the optimism is reflected in songs like "Three little birds pitched by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true. Don't worry about a thing." But it wasn't long before Bob was saying, "Get up, stand up for your rights," because the way things were developing, the optimism was severely threatened. And then 30 years later, Bounty Killer wrote this: "Look into my eyes, tell me what you see. Can you feel my pain? Am I your enemy? Give us a better way. Things are really bad. The only friend I know is this gun I have. Listen to my voice. This is not a threat. Now you see the 9, are you worried yet? You've been talking about you want the war to cease, but when you show us hope, we will show you peace." Now that song was banned from airplay by the Busher them. That amazing piece of poetry. And I have a little breaking news I just got on my BlackBerry. Vybz Kartel has been given bail in the sum of 3 million J, $250,000 TT, and 35,000 US. I just did that for the benefit of everybody. So I'm going to be talking about Caribbean youth engaging with life issues. You see, dance hall, I think, is the culmination and the space that Vybz Kartel has created, which brings together the consumerism, the Clark shoes and the bling. It brings the identity issues with the bleaching of the skin. And of course, the violence. I mean, basically, you can't judge because it hasn't gone to court yet, but they are planning to charge him with 5 murders. So we'll have to see how that enterprise works out. These are some Caribbean youth's voices. Oh, hold on. I have to turn up the volume.
It has been noted that youth were either the perpetrators of violent crime or were themselves victims of violent acts. In this short feature, we hear from some young people from across the region. Their stories tell a tale of growing concern on what they would like to see happen.
As I see, the main causes of crime, as I see in my community, it has a lot to do with two things: petty theft, and in the areas of drugs and conflict between what people call gang members and so on. Because you know, the gangs will be territorial. You may go to affect somebody, may step on someone's toes, somebody may interact with someone negative way, and then you can't let it down there. So what they do, they must go after each other.
You go to school and study hard. The entire education is it. You go to school and study, and then when you come out to see if you get a job, they tell you, you ain't got no experience, or you're saying no job left. As people saying, man, we keep you purified.
The adults themselves, who's supposed to be giving you guidance in the direction of doing right or wrong, they themselves pushes you in the direction of wrong. Because a lot of time with the uses of drugs, the youth themselves are not the one who is benefiting from selling these activities. It's mainly the adults are pressuring you into doing this.
Most youths come from homes where their parents are not really giving them much attention or, you know, much support to some of the things that they want to do in life and so on. And because of that, we tend to see young people going astray and following pairs and so on.
Perception would be the media, television, radio, the artists and the way they portray their lives and the way that the young people now see them living their lives and try to emulate that. Also, I would say another part would be, for example, food prices. Food prices currently just going up and up and up.
Can't be fair. We are not responsible for it.
Let them do something positive, because most of the young people that are involved in crime, they're not really doing anything. They're just like hanging out at the side of the streets and stuff like that. So if you could get them more involved in something productive, I think that would alleviate crime in the Caribbean and the world.
I would say more emphasis on educating young people about violence and crime and how to resolve their issues without fighting or shooting and stuff.
People to stop depending on the adults and go on their own and start forming their own youth groups, start talking about stuff that matter, like starting their own debate clubs and stuff like that.
Here in Antigua, we're now having, courts, basketball courts, like play fields and stuff being put up, but it's not enough to have just for recreation purposes. We need stuff where you can go somewhere and have a retreat or just to do something that would interest young people.
Parents need to sit down and tell their children about life and the birds and the bees. Some parents don't do that. Yes, you tell Charmaine that, we go to school, get good grades and whatever, but you don't tell them about, you don't speak to them about sex and gangs and, the types of friends that they're supposed to have.
You live in Chewy as a ghetto man, grow up Chewy. You never even harm a fly on them things. Police is come and pick you up just so. Care you and tell you about you Steve. When you telling them things, they're telling you about you're lying, they want to knock you on them things. Why them things supposed to be? Because you're from a ghetto, you're a human being, right? There's a man, can you know, every man on the face of the earth got feelings, right?
Is home to 8.5% of the world's population, yet it concentrates some 27% of the world's homicides. And as we heard earlier, the youth are the ones who are most likely to be the victims and the perpetrators. The proportion of persons below the age of 23 in our countries ranges from a high of 54% in Guyana to a low of 36% in Barbados, with the corresponding population proportion for this group of countries at about 46%. And I should say that in Jamaica, I know that the figure for what we are calling at-risk unattached youth, and I'll go into that a little bit more, is at around 150,000. There are about 150,000 young people in Jamaica who are categorized as at risk, unattached, and I would say in peril. Exclusionary and jobless growth, high rates of youth unemployment coupled with unrealistic expectations and high levels of inequality tend to result in high rates of crime, including violent crime. Aren't they beautiful? Let's just remember that that's what our enterprise is about. It's about those beautiful young people. The trajectory of violence can be interrupted and insecurity can be diminished. This has been achieved elsewhere and can be achieved in the countries of the region. The time to act is now. This is a piece of work by Ebony Patterson. She had an exhibition in Trinidad a short while ago. This is a graphic that someone did to explain what is called in Kingston Corners. These are the gangland territories, and we have them in Kingston, we have them in Spanish Town, we have them in Montego Bay, and then we also have them in other countries of the Caribbean. This was created by our politics. This was created by the politicians who brought us into independence based on that Westminster model that Carrie just condemned, and I agree with her on that. This is what you see when you drive around in the inner city of Kingston. This is a dead Don, and so he's been set up on the walls as an icon, really. 16% of the population live below the poverty line. 25.2% live on less than $2 a day. 60% of those living in poverty are under the age of 25. And 50% of school leavers are not functionally literate. But as you can see, you may be poor, but you certainly have aspirations. You know, your satellite dish and your air conditioning, etc. But this is also Kingston. The only problem is you have to live behind bars because of the absolute inequality and absence of a sense of social justice. So our organization, we have a tagline, youth empowerment through the arts. And these are the young people we work with, the unattached youth. Now, when you ask somebody in like the corporate sector or in the NGO sector, what is an unattached youth? They say, oh, that's a youth that's not in school or work. And then they proceed to develop policies based on that definition. Well, this is an unattached youth. These are children and young people who live in unstable and abusive families. They feel abandoned, they feel unloved, they have a negative self-image, they feel as if they're victims of the system, they're distrustful, defensive, lacking in motivation, they have no hope, they're angry, they have poor personal discipline, they're vulnerable to peer pressure. In Kingston, in those gangland communities, those young people that area youth work with, they come to our workshops every day, and there's always been a tragic, traumatic incident sometime between the last time I saw them and the next time they came. They've had to contend with death and violence and abuse on a daily basis. And so the result of that is they're constantly in a state of stress, hypervigilance. That means that they can't sleep at night because they have to be listening out for the gunshots and for when it's time to duck under the covers. And tell you the truth, I heard somebody say that in Laventille last night. They feel isolated, they feel alone, nobody understands, they can't talk to anybody, and the information they have, if they share it, they'll get killed. So when they go to school, they can't pay attention, so there's no wonder that they drop out. Can't sleep at night, they're irritable and volatile. And of course, everything is translated into a disrespect. As you heard the young man say, if you step on somebody's toe, and that seems to be a sort of an international affront. They worry about dying. I talk to a lot of young people who say they don't think they're going to grow up, and they are emotionally anesthetized. They begin to treat everything as if it's, oh, well, that's just, how it is. The work we do, and that's just a list of some of the topics we cover in our workshops, but one of the most important things is trust building, and to get young people to feel that they're in a space in which they're comfortable and which they can begin to share their vulnerability and share their life experiences. And there's a word for it, they call it cultural therapy, and it's really a therapeutic approach that we work with through the arts. So we use a lot of music, drama, and visual arts as well. So those topics that we deal with in the life skills programs, whatever the topic is, the young people are challenged to find a creative response. And so out of that, they will write songs, do skits, develop dramatic pieces. So we have a repertoire now after 15 years. We could probably put all of them together and perform like the progressing plays that they used to carry around in the Middle Ages. We could go on for days. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of some of the ways in which the young people have worked, and then I'm going to focus on what I am projecting as one of the ways forward, because we can't just talk about how bad things are without thinking about how we're going to go, where are we going to go from here. We find, and we've been advised by the psychologists and the specialists, that catharsis, the ability to share a traumatic event and find ways of expressing it creatively, is one of the healing ways in which the young people can interact. And so this was a scene that they enacted for us, telling us what had happened. And this kind of enactment is eventually, in some cases, honed into performance. Because the other thing we find is that what they discover inside of themselves, when they are able to share with an audience through performance, there's another level of learning. There's the self-confidence, there's the ability to reach out and build empathy, get a sense of feedback from an audience. So it's a mutually reinforcing relationship. Now, this is an excerpt from I'm going to give you another small snippet. This is something that we did in high schools all over the city. And it really is about identity and dealing with some of the negative role models.
Yo, Black Keisha, where are they over here, sir?
Them don't want to play with me.
Why?
Show me blacks.
Foolishness that.
Me don't know me mother go have me for that black ugly man they found.
Don't worry, we can fix it.
We do what?
We have the right thing for you, hold on.
How will you, mother?
See it there? Instant white, you see me?
That can make me white for choo-choo?
Of course. You don't see how I'm brown and cute and the girls are just a rush me.
They get something, no?
Alright, come.
They were discriminating against black persons and they were talking about bleaching and all that, and true, the girl must be browner than Black Keisha, they get browner than Keisha. So them run her out of the ring and she go call her father, cause them box her down and the man come shoot up and box her.
Sir.
Young lady, what have you done to your face? Get rid of that right now.
Sir, black is beautiful for real, sir.
Of course.
But me always hear them say, when you're black, you have to stay back. and when you're brown, you can't stick around. How am I going to reach somewhere if I'm black, sir?
First of all these statements are not true. Black people are excelling all over the world. Yo, Black Keisha.
Area Youth was called in to intervene in a major community war that followed an election, as usual. And but what happened this time? It was really interesting and different, because a statutory organization had been set up called the Peace Management Initiative, and after the election, when the communities were really, the color coding represents the territories that are controlled by the different political parties. And within a matter of a very few days, a lot of people got killed. I mean, it was reprisal killing, so it didn't matter who you killed. We have a saying, you can't catch Quacky, you catch him shot. So immediately after that, state power moved in with might, and everything was just completely locked down. The Peace Management Initiative entered the community, and they managed to get the area leaders, AKA Dons, around the table. They had them to breakfast at the Hilton, and eventually they agreed that this killing was going nowhere, that they needed to put a stop to it. Having taken the decision at the table at the Hilton, they needed to come up with a strategy for taking the détente out of the Hilton and deepening it into the communities. So they called the Area Youth Foundation. And we went through all of the communities performing with groups in all of these war zones. And at the end of and we invited each community to send a group of young people to a course that we were going to put on at the Edna Manley College. We got a space at the Edna Manley College. We put on a 1-month program that we called Community Cultural Animation, just for the sake of having something to call it, because really, if we had called it about violence prevention, they wouldn't have come. What was interesting was when we went around the communities and were talking to people, it was all the young men, young combatants that were saying, we need peace, we have to stop the war. But when the time came for them to turn up for the course, they just sent girls. All the women and the mothers and the baby mothers and the sisters came. We had very few young men. And we were a little disappointed. Well, we're a lot of disappointed. What we hadn't realized is that because the conflict was still fresh, these young men felt they had to stay at home to protect the communities. That was one thing. And the other thing was that if they came out of the communities, they would have been vulnerable. And they felt that they were vulnerable equally to the opposing side and to the police. We worked with them for 6 months through music, and we did lots of talent competitions, and it was a slow and beautiful process until they began to trust each other. Then they started to go home and follow each other home and venture into territories that had formerly been places that they could never dare to go. And at the end of 6 months, then the government support came on board, the Social Development Commission and the this and that and the other. And it culminated in what they called Mountain View Harmony Splash. It was a complete day of celebration that started before dawn with road races and ended late at night with performances, all the talent competitions that came to a head and everybody got a chance to present themselves. We also created visuals. It's like creating billboards that say, this is what we did. They created murals that showed the history of Mountain View, took it from when it was a sleepy residential area forward to when it was a place where children could play and they could go to school and so on. And those of you who know Jamaica, this is Augustown, one of the most violent communities that abut the University of the West Indies. And these young men designed a mural and went out and painted it. That is demanding peace. I think I took out the slide with the finished version.
Never knew people from Saunders Avenue. I never knew people from Jarrett Lane. I never knew people from 63. Reason being through the war. But now, through this now, we get to meet a lot of people from these districts, and they are people too, and they are very nice persons.
And our whole vision is to unite districts across the area, to operate as one community, to foster peace, development and progress for the youth and youth them. That's our aim and objective.
We have to give thanks for the Peace Management Initiative. And to Era Youth Foundation, we bring in the balance. Because Era Youth Foundation, we really balance the thing and carry the youth them together in a harmony and tranquility through music and come together like session and all them things there.
But some people who are in warring districts are actually becoming friends. At first sight, you would probably think that they were some bad boy or bad girl, but if you get to know them, get to see that there's nothing like that. They're very talented and good people.
I feel like I'm a family that I talk to, I'm a friend with them almost every day. I just feel good, normal, and fit in.
What we do is always try to have something that culminates in performance. And lately we have been finding that what is very, very popular is music videos. So we do a lot of music. And what we normally say to the young people is, we're gonna work together to write a song. Some come up with their own ideas, some come up with things through collective discussion, and we bring them all together. Walter works with them to find a rhythm that they like or to invent a rhythm, a new one. And so now we have a lot of music videos and the one I'm going to show you, which actually predates Walter, but forgive me. The young people of Mountain View made this after all of that war, and we were able to get the television stations and the cinema at every single showing of every movie in every cinema for 3 weeks. They ran this music video.
Never knew people from Saunders.
Goes down, someone is killed without
I got a wrap-up signal, but really and truly the most important thing is about to come. We did these comic books. These young people, marginally literate, but what they ended up doing was creating stories and organizing them and putting them together as if they were making a movie. So they had to select locations, costumes, time of day. They had to negotiate for space. They had to go out into the community and lobby for support. They ended up with 4 comic books, one about HIV, one about unemployment, violence, and drug abuse. So that's what I asked, where do we go from here? And I have several quotations from Lloyd Best when he talks about school in Pan and seeing the Pan Yard as an alternative and more than an alternative, to a replacement for the conventional schools. And Area Youth was approached by the National Training Agency to develop a curriculum which we developed on the basis of the work of Dr. Howard Gardner and the very idea that there are styles of mind that, if empowered, can be more effective than focusing on simply the logical, mathematical, and verbal, which is normally what is focused on in the school system. And so what we're saying is that for the 21st century learner, the process has to be multimodal, has to invoke all the intelligences, and then we have to develop literacies, ways in which these can be instructed and strengthened. So what we had in that comic book was a set of literacies that were technological, humanist, epistemic. There was language arts, there was storytelling, there was dealing with media, etc. And so we developed a curriculum which was, as Gillian pointed out, where the potential lies in the entertainment industry. So we focus on where we're strong, which is in music and musical performance, and then all the other supporting aspects of the entertainment industry. But what is unique about it is that we use a methodology that I just explained, and that we have, the curriculum is divided into themes, which have to do with, first of all, getting to know you and how to talk to each other without it having to break out into a fight. Then getting to know me so I can tap into who I am and what my life is about. And then getting to know the world, which takes you into the world of work, governance, and entrepreneurship. And so I reprise Rodney King, and I want to end with Lloyd Best's last word.
Yeah.